Well, the T-Birds make a road trip every other year back east to Saskatchewan and into Manitoba, and you have to travel through southern Saskatchewan to get from Swift Current over to Brandon, and you have to go through the hamlet of Moosomin. And I always, when I go through there, I look for the Red Barn, and then I look for the signs to Wapella. And I always think of this particular player when we do that every year. He hasn't been a T-Bird for a while, but Bud Holloway is joining our alumni series. Bud, it is good to see you again, and you are back in Wapella after your career has ended, correct?
Yeah, back home. Yeah, so every time you're going past, don't be afraid to wave. I'm not too far off the highway.
Is there a sign somewhere on the entrance to Wapella that says home of Bud Holloway?
Actually, I got unveiled this summer. Mom and Dad and my sister and a lot of people surprised me at we had a little get together in the backyard, and they unveiled the sign. I didn't know I thought it was for Mom's retirement or something like that coming up here, but no, it was for this. So hopefully it's gonna go up soon. It's in progress, I guess. So.
Well, that doesn't surprise me, especially when you mention your parents, because they were around quite a bit when you were a T-Bird. I remember them often, and especially when we would travel in through southern Saskatchewan to watch you play, whether it was Swift Current over in Brandon or anywhere else on an eastern road trip. And I know there was one particular year when we not only went through there, we stopped and the whole team practiced there, and I think your dad was a big reason getting that particular practice session going.
Yeah, no, they've been the support is, starting from, when I first started hockey all the way through. They've always had full support. And yeah, when the distance got a little bit further from Saskatchewan to Seattle, they still made the trips and would come out and watch. And then we're always checking for the road swings when we were coming through, whether it's the Saskatchewan or the Alberta swing. And then they would book off, make sure they could make all those games, and just hook a hitch to the bus and follow it around.
Well, your time in Seattle was from 2004 to 2008. You did play a couple of games as a 15-year-old, came up in the 2003 year, but primarily 2004 to 2008. I was talking to one of your teammates from your first couple of years, Zach Fitzgerald, and talked about that team and how good of a team you were and how close you came to kind of moving, but just couldn't get over that hump to the next step. You had some good playoff runs, and I was looking back on that and didn't realize just how prolific you were. In the playoffs, you had some pretty good numbers in the postseason with Seattle, but those were some pretty good teams that you played with, and usually it seemed like Kelowna was the team that got in the way.
Yeah, we could never get past that second round hump there, so it was kind of tight games, tough battles, and Kelowna and then Vancouver the one year. But yeah, we had the amount of talent and the product we had on the ice was excellent. It was just just getting that little extra that we just always seemed to just come up a bit short in the postseason.
You were a first-round pick of the T-Birds back in the 2003. They used to call it the Bantam draft. Now they call it the prospects draft. You went 17th overall. Getting the call from the big city team and to come down to the States to play, what was that like for you?
Yeah, we had to look on a map and figure out where Seattle was. We weren't too well traveled at that point. Obviously, a lot has changed now with that, but no, it was exciting. Like the WHL for me was always the place I wanted to play. From watching Pat's games or Wheat Kings games growing up. And that's something kind of, as I had a goal, to do that. And then so getting selected in the Bantam draft, was an honor. And then it being in the first round was even better. So I was obviously knew there was a lot of work to do at that time, but it was a step in the right direction for me.
Do you remember any of the other guys that were selected in that draft by Seattle that came to like your first or second camp? Because I was looking back at the draft and said, I don't remember a number of these players. I think Fadden might have been in there, and I think there was a goaltender who played some with us. But you were the one player from that draft who, made the biggest impact, obviously. But not a lot of guys from that draft year, stuck as T-Birds. So the fact that they had some good years with you in the lineup tells you about your impact that you had at Seattle.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to think now. You got me here. It was Pinsent, I think, was
correct. Yes, he was the goalie. I think he played 4 games.
Yeah, Pinner there. So, but yeah, that's just trying to. Such a long time ago now, I guess.
When you played, the team was still headquartered in Kirkland and playing out of Kingsgate. I'm sure that brings back some memories. Having to practice up there in Kingsgate at the rink there, and then drive across the lake to the games at what was then Key Arena. Zach Fitzgerald was telling me about how he always loved that drive going across the lake to come play in the city. But I'm sure that has some memories for you.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, it's kind of like Zach was saying, it is when you're coming down into the city there and you see the skyline and you're coming in, it's a beautiful city. And obviously it was, from the rink they have today, from the practice rink that we had, I'm hearing it's significantly better. But like you said, it didn't matter where we were practicing because we had such a good group of guys and teammates there that it just made it fun to go, whatever, if we were at the Kingsgate or we were at the Key, which was set up mainly for basketball, but still was for a 16-year-old kid to see the size of that stadium it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a bit of a slight upgrade as far as the practice facility down here in Kent now at the Showwear Center. You got drafted by the LA Kings in your draft year in the 3rd round. And again, for a young kid coming out of Wapella, I'm sure that was pretty, big news back home. But it's always the exciting time to get that selection, to hear your name or see your name go across the screen and be picked by an NHL team.
Yeah, we were up in Vancouver when my agent kind of said, we could possibly, we're not sure where, but we wanted to go anyway. So it was a bunch of me and my family and some cousins and that went up. It was in Vancouver, so went up there. And yeah, when the Kings were selecting in the 3rd round, they called my name. I was just like, wow, like it was just things just keep go from one getting everywhere I've gone has just been a bigger center. So I go to Seattle, it's bigger, and then I go to LA, it's even bigger. So it was from Wapella, it was pretty cool to obviously be selected, but at the same time, just progression in my hockey career.
I was looking at your stats with Seattle. I think 96. I think it was 96 goals, so close to 100. We had a player last year who, Jared Davidson thought he had scored his 100th career goal, and they took it away from him on review. But to get that close, did you ever think about that at all? About how close you came to 100 goals as a T-Bird?
No, not really. I was, kind of focused on in the moment, I guess, would be like obviously you review stats at the end of the year and kind of see where you're at, but periodically check them throughout the year with the stat packs that used to come before the games there. So I never looked at the overall total. It was more of how can I contribute tonight? I gotta make sure we get the win here. So
it was 94 goals, so just 6 shy. 96 sounded better. But I did notice in your pro career, which is about 12 years you played pro, you came pretty close to, milestones there, but you ended right at 500 points as a pro player. So that's a nice number to have to leave the pro ranks with.
Yeah, nice even number. We rounded her out.
Well, tell me about your pro career. It was primarily overseas, and particularly you played a lot over in Sweden. Tell me what it was like there. You talk about the culture shock of going from Wapella to Seattle to LA. What was it like going over to play in Sweden?
Yeah, Sweden was excellent. So previously, before Sweden, I was in Manchester, which was LA's farm team in New Hampshire. So 3 years out there, and then came to renew my contract, and we were going to try a different approach and stuff like that. So Oscar Moeller, who played in Chilliwack against us when I was in Seattle, He was drafted by LA also, and he was going back to play for a team in Sweden. So became obviously good friends with him. And then when he said, "Do you want to come over and play in Sweden?" I was just like, "Yeah, sure. Like, why not? What an experience!" And I went over there, and it was fantastic. Like the big ice, the fast-paced game, the passes is very crisp. Little different style than North American hockey, where you're trying not to dump it. You're playing possession because if you have to go forecheck and you got to go that extra 20 feet everywhere on the ice, you get tired pretty quick. So I kind of had to learn how to play my angles again as far as that stuff went. But no, it was a fantastic experience, and the people and my teammates were just awesome.
It's interesting you bring up Oscar Moeller because Seattle actually had acquired his rights, but LA never sent him back to Seattle to play. I think it was back in '09, possibly. They sent, I think, a second round pick to what was then Chilliwack, but he never came to play. But there's that connection between, your time in Seattle and your time in Sweden. Now, at one point, you did come back to North America to play, signed up with Montreal, the Canadiens, and lo and behold, you get one game in the NHL with Montreal. Tell us about that. And did they give you enough leeway that you could tell your parents so they could be there?
Yeah, so that I was finally off my restricted contract with Los Angeles. So decided to try again to, see if I could. I wanted to play in the NHL. Every kid does, right? As a hockey player. And so, free agency came that day, and I was finally a free agent, and had a little bit of interest for some teams. And then Montreal was there, so I ended up signing with them and started off the year in the American Hockey League out in St. John's, and playing in November there, and then got called into the office after a game. Said, "Bud, you're going up to Montreal," and obviously, shock. So I get out of the rink, called Dad right away. Said, finally, it's happened. Like I might have been 26 or 27 at that time. So I was just like, finally, all that practice is, we're getting close here and stuff. And so yeah, Mom and Dad jumped out, or they couldn't get away right away. So we ended up we were on the road. They were playing the Rangers. So I went up. I didn't play that game. Um, the next night was Jersey, so stayed in New York. Played Jersey, flew home after, and then we were playing the Islanders at home the day after. So Mom and Dad got to that game, and then that was the game. Then they said, "Okay, bud, you're going to go back to St. John's after this game," and I didn't play that game. So I ended up St. John's was on the road in Toronto, so my family just cruised over to Toronto, and we got to hang out a little bit there. So it worked out in a way. They never got to see the game, but we got to come and visit anyway, and they were obviously proud. And just anytime they can come and watch some hockey, they're always enjoying themselves.
But not only did you get up and get a chance, but to put on a sweater of an original six team. I'm sure that a great memory for you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the Habs are such a historical group, and like the players they have, and just the history walking into that dressing room, right? And seeing like the pictures on the wall and the jerseys and the rafters and the banners and everything. It's just like, it's an even more surreal moment than I was already going through.
Well, you last played in the 2019-20 season. Were you planning on playing more, or was it COVID that kind of helped you, decide to retire? How did you decide it was time to, move on from hockey?
Yeah, it was kind of a little bit of a forced retirement. So we were playing in the playoffs, and I was in Salzburg, Austria, and we were on the road going into Game 4, and then they called and said, game's canceled tonight. So we're like, oh, that's a bit weird. And then they said, oh, about 15 minutes later, the league's canceled. You guys got to get home. And the North American guys are like, what is going on here? Like, obviously, we knew COVID was a thing. It was possible that they would shut it down, but it all just happened so fast. So my youngest son was born in Austria. So we had to get an emergency passport for him because he was only, what would it be, 3 months old at the time, and so we had applied for his British one. It wasn't here, and then that became a whole thing. But anyway, we got home uh, and planning on going back, and they just weren't taking North Americans overseas, and didn't really feel like going out and grinding in the minors at my age and playing the rougher style of hockey. So yeah, I was kind of just said, you know what, I gotta feed the family, so let's gotta find something to do for work. So
Well, tell me what you're up to now. You mentioned your family. I think you've got two young ones at home, and what you're doing. I'm sure you're still keeping your foot in hockey in some way. So, what's Bud Holloway doing these days?
yeah, well, first of all, I got a wife and two boys, 6 and 3. I'll be the youngest will be 4 in December here. Um, when I first retired there, I was working as a skills coach, so obviously on the ice every day doing hockey. And then just this February, I started working with a Borderland co-op. It's a co-op in our area and doing fuel and ag equipment, seed, chem, so all your agriculture stuff for farmers. So kind of my role is sales rep, so I get to drive around, chat with farmers, and it's always it's a nice job because I can relate to them, and with the hockey bond, a lot of them watch senior hockey, they watch the NHL, so kind of opens the doors for discussion points and stuff like that. And a lot of the people in the area, I've taught their kids now because I did the coaching for 2.5 years and stuff like that. So um, it's good to kind of be settled now, and we know this is where we're raising our family, me and my wife, and so it's like I said, it was bad at the moment when I was forced into the retirement, but things are going good now.
Well, in 2017, when Seattle won their first Western Hockey League championship, they had a lot of players from Saskatchewan on that roster, some good Sask boys, and it's been a tradition in Seattle to have guys from that area and be successful, and you were certainly one of those. So we appreciate your time and joining us, and if you ever get back to this part of the country, stop by and take a look at the new digs. But congratulations on the success you had as a professional. And once a T-Bird, as they say, always a T-Bird. And never, if you're ever in the area, stop by and say hi.
Absolutely. No, thanks for having me. It's always nice to catch up. It's stirs up a lot of memories and stuff like that, chatting and all the old stories and all that stuff. So it's really good. So I just like to say hi to my billet, Chris, if she's gonna watch this. So thinking of you and love you.
Well, Bud, again, thanks for your time. Appreciate you joining us, and keep going. And at some point, I'm sure we'll see some young Holloways maybe get drafted again by the T-Birds.
Well, that'd be something, wouldn't it? So no, that'd be great. So I'll try and make it out when the boys are in the area here.
That is Bud Holloway, our guest on this edition of the Alumni Series. We thank you for joining us, and stay tuned because we're always coming back with more.